Welcome. I know that some of you know about Ayurveda because I really just put out a little invitation on my newsletter. So I'm guessing people know a little bit about it. But tonight, I'm going to do a brief overview of Ayurveda, very brief. It's the science of life, right? So there's a lot to it. But just to get us on the same page, a very brief overview. And even if you know about it, it never hurts to, go over the basics just to refresh it, and you can hear it differently each time. And then we're going to look at why it's important to look not only what you do every day as your daily habits, those are important, but in Ayurveda to look at an entire year, because things change over a year, and there's different seasons where different things are happening in the environment, and we need to adjust to that and do different things as the year progresses, which is really the inspiration why I wrote the book the way that I did, 365 days, so that we could look at what kinds of things to expect and how to adjust as the year progresses on. Of course, we look at our whole life, and there's different doshic seasons of our life, but looking at the full year is really important. So Ayurveda, it's a consciousness model that vibrancy comes from the underlying field of energy and information, and it comes up into us. It comes up into that carrot that we pick and prepare and eat. It comes into the beans and rice. Everything, this energy and information comes into everything in nature. And then when we live close to nature, then we are not only getting that energy and information directly into us, we're getting it through the food and through the experiences that we select, and the food that we eat. So that's why the food is so important in Ayurveda. It's how we get energy and information habits. So we're looking at a year of living Ayurveda and the three doshas. As I said, I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview first. And the three doshas are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata is about movement, transportation. We're in the Vata season right now. Vata season is November through February. The way the leaves move, the wind blowing, that's Vata. The wind, the movement, the dryness of the wind makes, all of that is Vata. Pitta is in the summer, a little bit later, July through October. It's composed of fire and water. Vata is composed of air and space, fire and water. And so we're just ending that doshic season at the end of October, and we're now into the Vata season. And then Kapha is earth and water. So earth and water can make mud. So Kaphas can be sometimes lethargic or sometimes slow, but earth and water gives us our stability too. And that period of time is in the spring, March through June. And you think about the water, you think about the moisture that comes into the earth in March, and that tells you what's going on with Kapha. So none of these are good or bad. We have all three of them, but we want the healthy versions of each of these. We want the healthy Vata, the movement, the dancer, the lightness, the spirituality of Vata, not Vata when it's excessive and you become nervous or dry or anxious, those sort of things. We want the healthy Pitta, the drive and the desire and the intensity, but not unhealthy Pitta, which is too much fire. We can have heartburn, too much fiery emotions, lots of anger. And in Kapha, we want the healthy Kapha, the structure, the strength, the strong immune system, but not the lethargy, the depression, that kind of thing. So I wanted to give you some really practical things. I mean, I built the book that way in terms of helping you to understand Ayurveda one day at a time, one bit of information at a time. The problem I was trying to solve for the reader is that Ayurveda can be overwhelming. So just a little bit of information each day and some practical hints. I know people really like practical hints. So we're in Vata season. So I'm going to give you 5 diet, lifestyle, and spice hints and tips. So we're in Vata season. As I said, Vata is air and space. I mean, think about how light that is and ungrounded. Air and space is dry. Air and space is a lot of movement. So what do we want to do in Ayurveda? We look at balancing what has become excessive. And we balance it by adding the opposite qualities. So because Vata is air and space, and it's dry and it's cold, then we want to do the opposite of that. And so especially now we want warm, cooked, well, and always real food, all 3 seasons. I won't go much into that, but our processed food still sends us information how to operate, but it sends us junk information. So we start operating in a lot of unhealthy ways with allergies and immune system issues, all of that. So real food comes from the underlying field, gets the energy and information from that, the accurate energy and information, and then nourishes us. So warm cooked food and unctuous. I don't know if you know that word. Unctuous means oily. So it can mean actual oils, cooking with coconut oil, avocado oil, or ghee. Those are the only 3 oils I recommend for cooking because they have high smoke points and they don't become dysfunctional when heated. So coconut oil, avocado oil, and ghee. So the actual oils, but also some unctuous foods like avocados, things that have oil in them, nuts. Nuts are very good for pacifying Vata. And this is good for all seasons. Largest meal at 10 a.m. You're going to get 5 diet tips. So largest meal at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Middle of the day, that's when our pitta is the strongest. And that means that's when our digestion is the strongest. And Ayurveda is all about perfect digestion and really trying to enhance digestion of food and of our emotions. Some of us can be good at digesting food and not too good at digesting emotions. But in Ayurveda, those are one and the same. So we want to be able to digest food and we want to digest emotions. So the foods to favor are Vata pacifying foods. In other words, Vata has become too dry, too anxious, too nervous, too much movement. And so we want to bring that down and ground it and moisten it. So some of the foods to favor this time of year are dairy, all but the hard cheeses. They can be hard to digest, but like cottage cheese, or I don't know if you know paneer, and milk itself, but I only recommend if you can get local raw milk from a farmer. It's hard to get. I can get it here, but not everybody can get it. If not, I don't recommend store-bought milk. It's too processed. There's too many hormones and chemicals in it. And so I'd say, almond milk or some alternative as opposed to real milk. Grains, there's like a negative thing about grains, but they're really important. When we start avoiding food, we start missing some of the chemistry that needs to happen inside of ourselves. There's different processes inside ourselves that are initiated by information that's in the food. So if we start eliminating foods from our diet because they're hard for us to digest, that might help us for a while, but eventually we're losing the information that we need for the body to operate at full force. So basmati white rice, actually the white rice, is highly recommended in Ayurveda. Brown rice might have more nutrition, but it's harder to digest. It's that the hull around the brown rice is very difficult to break through. And Ayurveda is all about easy digestion. So white basmati rice. And if you're going to go with wheat, get an organic wheat, because I don't know if you've read about this, but the wheat fields, they cover them with poison to kill all the weeds so that just the wheat stays standing when it's time to harvest it. So there's a big dump of toxins on wheat right before harvest time. So fruits, some of the fruits are like rich, watery fruits, mangoes, berries, papayas, cherries, avocado, things that have a lot of water in them. And if you're following the principles here, so raisins, not good, right? Because they're dry, but you can soak them, or even dried cherries, you can soak them, and then you're honoring the principle of pacifying Vata, which is needing the moisture. And as we go up in our age, we're in the Vata time of life, so we need more and more moisture. So moist fruits and avoiding dry fruits. And what I tell people, if you've got to have chips, tostado chips, then put some guacamole on them, put some oil on them to balance that dryness out. So the vegetables, 2 kinds. One would be the zucchini, asparagus, cucumbers, things that are wet and moist. And then vegetables like beets, sweet potatoes, winter squashes, vegetables that are grounding. So that's what Vata needs to come into balance. So we have the best version of Vata. And then there are some spices, cardamom, cumin, ginger. Ginger's really good. A slice of ginger is a good thing to add to your spice water this time of year. All nuts are good. Beans, reduce them except for mung and small lentils. Or if you're going to have beans, like beans and rice as a complete protein, if you're going to have beans, it's really helpful to add something called hing, H-I-N-G. It's also known as asafoetida in Ayurveda. And it's probably whatever that product Beano is made out. It's probably the original Beano. It takes the air quality out of beans so that you avoid getting the gas from the beans being too dry. Oils are good for pacifying Vata. Ghee is wonderful. Ghee is clarified butter. And in the book, I do have an easy way to make ghee in a crock pot, so it's kind of foolproof. Sesame and olive oil. And I don't know if you know this, but you never cook with olive oil. And I know people advise it, but it doesn't do well with the heat. So again, the oils I advise for cooking are coconut oil, ghee, and avocado oil. There may be a few other, more obscure oils that are fine, but those three are common, and those are the ones that I like. So cook with spices. I showed you some of the spices on the page before this. And then there's a Vata Churna recipe that's at the end of this PowerPoint, and it's a mixture of spices so that you can always have those Vata spices handy whenever you're making something. But cooking with spices is a really wonderful thing to do. There's a lot of intelligence in spices and seeds. And when you think about it, a seed, you pick some spinach and within a few hours it's deteriorating. You harvest some seeds or some spices, a year or 2 years later they're still potent. So there's a lot of life force in spices. So consider adding spice to your life. To promote digestion, cook with spices and eat in a settled environment. A lot of us eat on the run, right? So other things is something called a ginger pickle. You take a little slice of ginger, add some lemon and salt, and you eat it and swallow it 30 minutes prior to a meal, and it gets the gastric juices going to prepare you for your meal. It gets the right things moving. Hot spice water, good thing to promote digestion all day long. You sip it, but with your meal, it's advised to only have about a half a cup of water. Otherwise, you douse your digestive fire. Eat in a settled environment. You might consider like adding some fresh flowers, soft music, real plates, napkins, that kind of thing. And regularity is really important for Vata. So doing things with some sense of routine, meal times at the same time, having some ritual, getting up and going to bed at the same time, that sort of thing is really important, and that really pacifies Vata. Okay, so lifestyle 5. I'm going to give you a little experience. So I want you to get settled and just relax, sit in a good position, close your eyes, take a deep breath, inhale and exhale. All right, now take another breath and focus on the place in your body where you can hear your breath and listen to it. Now notice any movement in your body. Notice any movement in your body as you breathe. No judgment, no effort, just noticing. Now feel the breath as it enters and leaves your nostrils. So allow your focus to be at your nostrils. Your entire awareness becomes focused on the nostrils. No judgment, no effort. Just noticing. And how do you feel? Do you notice any difference between how you felt before the breath awareness exercise and how you feel now? And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So that's one breath awareness thing that we can do. Breath awareness is a really easy thing. We can do it at any time. You can make a conscious effort to do it, sitting in a chair, sitting up and doing the breath awareness. You can do it while you're on a bus someday in the future, if you're ever on a bus again. And so the breath awareness, it helps us to concentrate and focus and allow other things to become inconsequential. And I think focus is a big thing, right? What we're going through with COVID and all of that, our minds are like, whoo, man, really not. About 2 or 3 days ago, I saw a huge bird out my window and I looked to see what it was, and it was a hawk. And I'd never seen a hawk in my yard before. And so I asked Alexa, what is the symbol of a hawk? What does it mean? And she said the hawk is about focus and concentration, because a hawk is a hunter. So they really have to observe and concentrate and focus. So breath awareness helps us to get that sense of concentration, but in an easy way, not in an effortful way, but in an easy way, the focus and the concentration that becomes natural. So lifestyle 5, breathing, breath awareness really is something we can do all the time. Going for walks, that's a big thing people are doing now because of all the COVID and what, just taking long walks. Try taking the walk, a sensory mindful walk. All the senses. What do you see? I mean, really see when you walk, not what's in your mind, but what do you see when you walk? What can you feel? Maybe stop and feel a tree or pick up a leaf and feel it. What do you hear? Even what do you taste without even putting anything in your mouth? What is the taste of the air? And what did I miss? See, hear, taste, smell. And so what do you smell? So a sensory mindful walk can be very grounding for Vata, because we're all a little Vata aggravated right now, to be honest. We may have an imbalance in Vata because of our constitution, because of our own, what's out of balance for us personally. But when there's a lot of stress, Vata goes out of balance really easily. And I think there's been a lot of stress. So all of us can use this grounding that Vata needs in order to be a grounded Vata, where we feel our spirituality, we feel our playfulness. When Vata is grounded, that's the Vata we experience. But when it isn't, then the monkey mind. So third one of lifestyle 5, yoga, or gentle movement. Meditation. My teacher that I studied Ayurveda with, and I also studied how to teach meditation from, has a website. His name is Paul Douglas. He has a website, www.heartbasedmeditation.com. And he teaches meditation there for free, virtually. And you do it 4 Saturdays in a row for an hour. And then he also sends you some other material during the week, and you can make a donation if you want, but it's a free thing. He's a masterful meditation teacher. He's a masterful meditation teacher. So if you're considering meditation, that would be a really great thing to do. So, oh, and gratitude, gladdening the mind. This is a Tara Brach thing, but I think this is a great lifestyle thing. She said there's 3 things we can do to gladden the mind. Gratitude, having an attitude of gratitude, to serve others. And that might mean volunteering. I mean, that's what we think of serving, but it might mean serving someone that you care about, serving them, serving a neighbor, serving the postal worker that comes by, being of service to them, just saying a genuine thank you to them for what they're doing. All of that is service. It doesn't have to be, that you're volunteering at the soup kitchen. It can be that, but it can be various kinds of service. And savoring. This is the one I think that we don't do so much. When you have a good experience, savor it. Spend some time appreciating it. Let it go deep. Our difficult experiences easily go deep and easily stay with us a long time. Our positive experiences are more fleeting. And Tara Brach says we need to change that ratio. We need our wonderful experiences to be savored and appreciated. Think about that. Think about savoring. And then earlier I talked about spices being so important, the spice of life. Spices have a lot of energy in them. They retain their energy. So looking at some of the Vata spices to start incorporating, cardamom, it's used a lot in India. We don't use it so much here, but we should. And then some heating spices, because Vata is cold. So this time of year, heating spices are really good. Cayenne, ginger, cinnamon, heating cloves, cumin, mustard seed. Salt retains moisture. So when we salt our food, not processed food, that's too much salt and not good. But when we gently salt our food, that helps us to retain some moisture in our body. If you're feeling like, I don't know, if you're feeling like me, like my skin's been dry, I'm really having to consciously do things to keep it moist right now. But salt, and you can even, if you're having a glass of water, put just a tab of salt in it. Again, if you're not eating a lot of processed food where you've overdone salt. But if you're eating real food, then you can comfortably salt, and it can help you to retain moisture. Ashwagandha is probably my favorite spice to recommend to people. It's the one that helps the most with Vata pacifying. It calms our nervous system, which a lot of us need. It also tonifies our muscles, which a lot of us need too. So a lot of athletes use ashwagandha, and sometimes they use it too excessively if they're like power lifters and things. But a dose of a quarter, half a teaspoon a day of ashwagandha is really good for grounding our Vata, toning our muscles, toning our adrenals, and toning our nervous system. I have it every day. I have a drink every morning that I have hot date nut milk, made with raw milk, and I put some ashwagandha in it. Arjuna is the other one that's really a nice stress spice for stress, and it's about the heart. It helps to build the emotional and physical heart, and it's really highly recommended if you're grieving. And we're all grieving something. There may be something current in our life that we're grieving. For a lot of us with this COVID, we're grieving a way of life that's not available to us right now, or we're grieving something from early in our life, but we haven't really named it. So Arjuna, heart strengthening, can be a really good one. The mental health spices that help with Vata are Bacopa and Godakola. It's funny, they're both called Brahmi. I think it's the only spice like that has 2 different spices have the same alternative name, Brahmi. But they're both for the mind, concentration, focus, really good because Vata, we really have to settle the monkey mind. And many people use equal portions of this, maybe a quarter to a half teaspoon of Bacopa and the same of Godakola to make a tea that helps to strengthen and settle the mind. And then immunity, COVID hardy spices. Ashwagandha, again, it's powerful. It's a great spice. Tulsi, amla, there's a few others. And then tea, drink the hot spice water later on in the PowerPoint. If you don't have the recipe for it, I give the recipe for that. Ama busting tea and fall blend tea that includes some of these spices.